And then you have the sounds that are so terrifying, they injure themselves or they die trying to escape. So how does sound work with animals? Well, I'm so happy that you agreed to do this podcast with me, because I think it's necessary for us to jump into some very important topics for animal lovers and pet owners, and people who just generally would like to know more about animals, animal behavior, and how to actually care for animals.
So, hi. So my name is Dr. Nisshi Seepersad. I'm a veterinary surgeon. I have been in practice for the last 12 years. I graduated from the School of Veterinary Medicine here at UE, and I've been practicing for that period of time since graduation, mainly on small animals, dogs, cats, birds, companion animals, very few large animals. Um, I've always had a passion for working with animals and helping them. And that stemmed from my exposure as a child. I grew up in a household where we were exposed to animals, again, small animals, dogs and cats. That passion grew and it extended into animal rescuing, which I've done for over 30 years. And I took that up a notch and I decided to add the professional qualification to it. So I now have that knowledge to go along with the practical exposures and experiences that I've had, to put it into a little package or full package where I can offer as much help as I can, particularly to companion animals, dogs, cats, birds.
So let's jump into
Okay.
our first episode. And this episode, we explore noise phobia and sound sensitivity. So every year, it happens to everybody. It happens to animal lovers, pet owners, those who offer care, those who are involved in animal rescue. We struggle in helping our little friends cope with frightening episodes of fireworks phobia. And by fireworks phobia, we want to include firecrackers and the scratch bombs. But first, let's try to understand sound and how sound works with animals. So I have noticed that there's some sounds are really pleasing to dogs or cats. So let's say I were to rustle a pack of snacks. That's quite pleasant. Even the tone that I use to talk to dogs, or there are some sounds I realize that they don't seem to be bothered by much. I might find it a little disturbing, but it doesn't seem to bother them.
So, first of all, their levels of hearing is a very important factor. So, I say that because things that we hear as humans are not necessarily things or the levels that they hear as dogs and cats. Our frequencies, the frequencies that we can hear, is very limited compared to what they can hear. Our maximum range is about 20,000 hertz. But for cats can go up to about 64,000 hertz. That's as high, that's the level that they hear at. Dogs can go up to about 45,000 hertz. So their hearing can extend way beyond ours. So small things, big things, it affects them differently. The sounds affect animals through things like association also. So as you mentioned, a crackle from a snack pack will send them into lots of little wags and woofs. Happy behavior, because there's an association there. They aren't scared, they're happy, they're associated with something good, food, right? So again, the type of sound that they hear can make a difference. The level of sound that they hear also makes a difference.
So let's say the television. So you have your television on, and you might find it a little loud, and you have, let's say, there's a lot of gunfire or something. And that might, for some people, that might be a little disturbing, so you turn the volume down, but dogs tend to be all right with it. Like my dogs are just fine with that.
And that's because they've been accustomed to it. They're sensitized to those noises. So certain levels, certain dogs or certain cats have had exposure to these, and they have positive associations with the noises. The rattling pack is a positive association, but it may be a soft sound. Um, gunfire on a television show or a boombox in your house may not send them into a frenzy because those are things they're accustomed to and they're associated with a safe environment. They're associated with happy people around them. They're associated with just safety all around. They've never been exposed to any dangers. And it's something they learn to expect and it grows with them. So sometimes they start off with exposure to soft sounds and then you increase the frequency of the sounds. So as they get more exposed to higher frequencies, their sensitivity improves so that even again, very loud noises don't always affect them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, that varies according to what the animal has been exposed to. So exposure is very important.
What about the breed of dogs? Because you mentioned just now certain types of dogs, and that is something else that I've noticed that some breeds are more sensitive than others. For example, one of my dogs would probably sleep through a thunder session, but the other dog gets really frantic when there is a louder thunder. And sometimes I don't even hear the thunder, but she picks up on it. And that's when we notice that she starts, she starts looking for spaces to get into, to just cower, or she follows you wherever you go. And the other one is just sound asleep.
Yes, well, again, the number factor. So breed is one factor that will affect the sensitivity, anatomy of the dog. So the structure of the actual air and the ability of those sound waves to get into the air for the animal to hear it and process it. There are breeds like German Shepherds, Collies, Golden Retrievers. They are more sensitive to those sounds generally, but we can't just confine it to breed. They're also, as I mentioned, the sensitivity factor, what they've been exposed to and what they associate with certain sounds. So that comes into play. The I mentioned the anatomy of the dog. So the natural anatomy of the dog, the structure of the air flaps, the air canals, and the ability to direct sound waves into the dog's air matters. But you may have dogs who have been cosmetically altered, dogs whose air flaps have been removed. We have cropping of dogs' airs. So it does happen. And in that case, a barrier is removed, a barrier to sound entering those dogs' airs have been removed. So again, they have more exposure to the sound than, let's say, if they were unaltered. Also, let's say the health status of a dog may cause a change or may affect how they react to noise. Sick dogs may be less tolerable to loud noises, or on the other hand, they may just be too ill to move, even though they're hearing it. And you also have things like age affecting dogs and their ability to hear. Younger dogs may have more acute hearing. A very old dog, on the other end of the spectrum, a very old dog may have compromised hearing. And again, same level of noise may not affect him. So he may just lie there. Whereas if he were a little younger, he may have been a little bit more sensitive to that same level of sound. So yes, breed is a factor in looking at the sensitivity of the dogs to sound, but it comes along. It's not in a bubble by itself. There are other factors around that affect. So you may have one German Shepherd who, around the same age, but two German Shepherds around the same age. And yes, the breed German Shepherds are noise sensitive generally. But again, one may be more sensitized to sound than the other.
Right.
So, yes.
Okay. Let's go to noise phobia. And a big problem for us here in Trinidad and in other parts of the world, fireworks. And so many people have posted up over the years. And this past year, the damage done to animals more visible because of social media. People have been posting up, and just recently we had Diwali, and it was just really heartbreaking to see videos and photos of families mourning the death of their dogs or their little ones because they died trying to escape the sound. So let's focus on fireworks. So what happens to a dog, for example, internally, psychologically, physiologically, when a scratch bomb goes off or when fireworks goes off?
Okay. So that stimulus, it's a stimulus to the dog. So that's not going to enter the dog's body. It's a loud, sudden stimulus to a dog. Those sound waves enter the air, and that dog starts to panic. It triggers a defensive reaction in the dog. So that his autonomic nervous system, parts of his nervous system, his sympathetic, to be more precise, his sympathetic nervous system kicks in, and it's a defense mechanism. So what that tells him is, hey, there's something not right here. We're feeling scared. We're hearing a loud noise. We're seeing some blinking lights that we're not accustomed to. We have some sounds, some smells, some sense associated with these loud noises and these blinking lights. So there's a panic setting in there. His body is going to strive to protect him. That sympathetic nervous system starts to kick in, and it releases hormones into his system. Those are carried around his body, and that is the purpose of that, is to defend his body. It's preparing his body for flight or fight, and that's how it's going to defend itself. So it tells the dog, hey, this is not a good situation. We need to find a way to survive. Are we going to fight this off, what we perceive as a threat, or are we going to run away from it because we don't think we can handle this? So those hormones now circulate, and they send messages to the organs of the body. So the heart comes into play. So their heart rate would increase because you need to have more blood circulating for more oxygen to be supplied. You're getting ready to fight, or you're getting ready to run. Heart rate increases, blood pressure increases, the respiratory rate increases. You need to breathe. They need to breathe faster. They start to pant, right? The muscles now have an increased blood supply to them. They become tense. They start twitching. They get very eager, and they start to get restless, and they start pacing. The pupils become dilated. The pupils of the eyes become dilated, and that's, again, to allow more light to enter, because now we're getting to fight, or we're getting ready to run away. So we need to see what we're going to be fighting against, where we're going to be biting or hitting or whatever, and or where we're going to be running to. We need to see what we're doing. So a lot of the physical aspects of the body change at that point in time. And that, again, is to prepare the body to get away from the situation. And that basically is why it becomes so dangerous, because there's no limit. When they continue to hear, when that sensory input, which is the loud noise, together with the flashing lights and the changes in the sense, when those come into the body and it's continuous, that mechanism is continuously in play. It doesn't stop, so the dogs can't calm down, and it spirals into a very explosive behavior.
You mentioned scent and you mentioned sight, and those are important factors, because most of the time we get carried away in them just hearing the sound. But just to briefly explain the sight and the scent factors.
So when you have, there are associations as well. So sometimes when you have fireworks, you actually see the lights. So dogs that are outside and can see that, have that association, the lights that come along with it. So maybe not in isolation. The primary stimulus would be the sound, but there are secondary stimuli like the sense and the lights. When you burst those scratch bombs, even the firecrackers, we can pick up those scents, and the olfactory senses of dogs and in particular, dogs and cats, but dogs in particular, they're keener than ours, so they can pick up those senses. Which the secondary stimuli would be the lights and the sense associated with the fireworks. So they would hear the sound, but lots of times, even though the sound may not be close, the dogs having a keen olfactory sense may be able to pick up the scent, or they may be able to see flashing lights, and that adds to the panic that they're experiencing.
So, what can we do to create a safer and more comfortable space for our fabulous pals? Catch up in our next episode. Drop me a line on Facebook or Instagram at Karen KD Das. If you'd like to get in touch with Dr. Nisshi Seepersad, you can find her on Facebook or Instagram at First Line Veterinary Plus, email or WhatsApp 478 8476. This has been a KDC production.